Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Friday, the 16th of November, 2012. I'm Jim Ninsel, host of Political Roundtable, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national politics. Tonight, we'll talk about Pima County's ongoing vote count and how it's going to impact the tight congressional race between Congressman Ron Barber and Republican challenger Martha McSally, as well as a road bond question that's passing by just hundreds of votes. We'll wrap up a few other races and discuss Senator John McCain's push for an investigation into the attack on a U.S. embassy in Benghazi. Joining me this evening is Pima County Democratic Chairman Jeff Rogers, political strategist Sam Stone, Tucson City Councilman Steve Kozachik, and Tucson Tea Party founder Trent Humphries. Thanks to all of you guys for being here. Jeff, one of the advantages of this slow vote count is it gives us an extra week to talk about how these races turned out. Let's start with the Congressional District 2 seat. That's the one where Ron Barber is now leading his Republican challenger Martha McSally by about 1,000 votes in that race, less than 1,000 votes. Counting's finished in Cochise County. We're now down to provisional count ballots here to count in Pima County, and the Barber campaign sent out a memo yesterday outlining the reasons they think they're going to prevail in this one. Your sense of how this is going to go?
I think that memo summarized it pretty well, and you've been doing a good job of covering at the weekly how it kind of zigs and zags. McSally's up, then Barber's up, and they just keep reversing roles for a while. But that was all because of the Cochise County vote. When it would come in, she was winning it by a wider margin than Barber is winning it here, and so she would surge up, and then he would take over because of the larger volume of ballots here. But now that Cochise County is done counting the votes, I expect that it will just continue to pad his margin every day as the votes that come in. We're seeing most of the provisionals there's a higher degree of probability that they're Democratic ballots. And as you can see, many of the other issues like the ballot issue we're going to talk about later. So I think that he's got it in the bag. It's just a matter of it's still going to take us into next week to find out the final results of it. But I expect to see his margin grow each and every day. And the recount is 0.1% or 200 votes, whichever is lesser. So in that case, it's 200 votes. So I don't think he's going to get within that 200 vote margin. I think that this is going to be over within a few days.
Trent, Martha McSally still have a shot here to gain some ground.
The Cochise County votes are out there, but so are the early ballots from Pima County. That was Ron Barber's biggest strength, and they're done counting those as well. So it remains to be seen what happened with those provisionals. I don't know how Jeff has a way of knowing where the provisionals came from or who voted them. I mean, that's going to be a big thing because, as we know, there were a lot of problems on Election Day. And so those provisionals are going to be a little bit different than the makeup that we've seen in provisionals in the past. And right now, I would say there's, 900 votes is a lot. If it were 400 votes, I think that Martha has a good chance. 900 is going to be razor close, is what my personal feeling. So we'll have to see what happens.
And Steve, how do you think this one's going to go?
Yeah, well, I think now that Cochise is done, the last numbers I saw, you said 900. I think I saw that in the paper this morning. Last night I saw 761 or something like that. So, the numbers are up and down. I thought it was interesting also that the McSally campaign, some of her own attorneys were trying to suppress some Latino Democratic voting in Cochise County yesterday. And so my sense is that if you feel as though you're winning, you're not going to cherry pick and make a desperate move like that and trying to suppress Latino vote. Now it's up into the Tucson area, and that is where Ron was stronger. She has done a wonderful job of pivoting from the hard right positions that she took in the primary. For instance, the Grover Norquist no tax pledge, the Paul Ryan, the cutting the Pell Grants deal, the Phyllis Schlafly approach to abortions. I think the voters are smarter than that. I think that's what we'll find out when the vote count's done.
And Sam, what did you think of that move in Cochise County to say, hey, there's some Latino precincts here, we're concerned about how these ballots were handled? Was that a smart move by the Republicans?
I don't know whether or not that was a smart move because I wasn't on the ground there to see exactly what the issue was they had with those ballots. But we know there have been problems across the state, really in every county, with our counting process and with our elections process that needs to get cleaned up. So if we're seeing some isolated incidents of problems, I'm not at all surprised, and not surprised that in a race this close that they would do everything they can to protect the integrity of the ballot process and make sure that those votes are counted properly, which in the end was what they decided on with that situation, was to go ahead and count them, but keep those ballots sequestered in case that this did go to a recount and there was some question about them.
And how do you think it's going to go?
At this point, I think it's a very tough hill for McSally to climb. It does seem to be trending Ron Barber's direction. But as Trent said, those early ballots are out of the way. Now we're down to provisionals. It's hard to know where all those are coming from. A lot of the problems with provisional ballots had nothing to do with sort of the usual reasons people get a provisional. Instead, it had to do with misprinting at the recorder's office.
No, that's actually not true. 60% of the provisional ballots that we have right now are people who either spilled coffee on their ballot at home, forgot the ballot at home, lost their ballot at home, threw it in the trash. Maybe I've had enough of elections.
We've
then
had
they changed
the
their
recorder
mind.
even admit that there's been a bunch of mistakes.
There are,
on that
but
front.
that's very few of them. It's very few. And she put out a nice memo on it. 60% of the provisional ballots are vote-by-mail people who arrived at a voting place with, and this is absolutely true. I mean, you can check on it, with no ballot for one reason or another. So that's what really slowed down this process, together with the fact that 44,000 people showed up on Election Day with their ballot. And that slowed down us getting to the provisional ballots because that's the most we've ever seen hand-delivered to the polling place on Election Day. So people held their ballots for a longer period of time than we've ever seen since we've been doing vote-by-mail. And in addition to that, more people lost or whatever their ballot and had to come in and vote a provisional. Now there were some that say I'm speaking of where if you registered on the very last day of registration, somehow your name got moved to the top of the roster and was not in alphabetical order. Or if you changed your address on that very last day, it didn't pick it up and it still had you on your address back in your previous precinct. So there were some software errors, programming errors, who knows what they were that caused that, but the number of people affected by that is really in the hundreds, not the thousands.
And I think it'll be good to get to the bottom of exactly what's going on there. But Trent, is there a way to count these votes faster? Because there's a lot of people out there pointing at Arizona now and having a good laugh at our slow process.
You have to balance it out. I mean, I know people that work at the recorders, and they have to go through every signature. At least a good number of them. So it's not the counting that's the problem. It's when somebody hands in a ballot, they have to check signatures to make sure they match with what's on file, or that the signature on the ballot matches what's on the envelope. That's what takes the most time. It's not just that we're just sitting there waiting to feed them through a machine. I've been on this. I've waited weeks for ballots to come in. I've done this, and it's frustrating. And sometimes you think that people aren't doing what they can. And there are some reforms that can be put into place. I think that obviously we're not in a position where we can upstaff for this election. We can't spend that type of money to make sure this goes through faster. And so I think that and going on to some of the other things you said, it needs to be that the process of legislation is like making sausage. Counting votes should not be like making sausage. There should be clear guidelines in place, and in a lot of cases there are. And if there's not, you need to look at those things like what happened in Cochise County. If things come back and they don't follow the rules like they're supposed to, then you need to raise questions, see what's going on here, and get to the bottom of what's happening there. I think that's not at all unexpected, or that shouldn't be a big hardship to find out. Well, why weren't these things sealed? Why was where is the record of where from the time this was voted till the time that we got the ballots? Can we vouch that they've been with the county the whole time? I think that those are important questions to answer. And it sounds like they did the investigation. They came up with a mutual understanding, and it sounds like that they did the right thing there.
I think what they agreed to do was just set them aside and say, unless this gets down to 330 vote difference, in which those 130 could turn it into a recount at the 200 level, then they don't matter. And so it's only if it tightens, then they'll relitigate that issue. And I'm comfortable with the Barber.
The right decision.
It's a smart thing to do. And the Barber campaign's position is the statute doesn't require these things to be sealed, and that's absolutely true. It doesn't. And the Secretary of State's manual says that that's the better practice to have them sealed, but it's not required by law, and the Secretary of State can't overrule the statute.
I think they made the right decision there also. To Trent's point, yeah, there are certainly, he's right, there are certainly some process issues that we have to deal with going forward. We also have to invest some money in the software and the hardware of what the elections people are using. We have to spend more time training the poll workers and their supervisors, because we saw issues of that, just misinformation being given out, not blasting on the volunteers who spend entire days down there, but we need to do a better job of training them and their supervisors. We also need to get these rosters, what Jeff was talking about, just get those things cleaned up. So next time we go through this, whether it's in 13 or whenever the next election is going to be, that we're not just lapping this track again.
Yeah.
And I would think that a lot of the issue here, I think we can agree on, is the fact that people are bringing their ballots in on the final day and dropping them off at the polling places, and those signatures all need to get checked to make sure they haven't voted twice.
And that's the process issue Trent's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, and I think a little more education to voters. Send your ballot in a little earlier. Come on. If you're not going to vote by mail, get off the vote by mail roster.
We've had both parties spend a lot of time and effort putting people on the permanent early ballot list. And a lot of those people, they're not familiar with being on the permanent early ballot list. They don't understand the timelines of the process. And so Jeff's absolutely right. I agree. Educating those voters is going to be critical to increasing not just our voter turnout, but our turnout of informed voters for these elections.
Is there a way to get off the Pell list?
Sure. You just contact the recorder's office and ask them to remove you. Sure.
And what about the idea of going to an all vote by mail process? Would that solve some of these problems?
I thought it was really went smoothly for the city election last year. Even more smoothly than I thought it was going to. The state of Oregon has been doing it for a decade. They've had no problems with voter fraud. They've had no problem with inefficiency or other problems. So I'd certainly be in favor of that. There's other options too, such as not having precincts at all. But like we did with the last year in the city elections, we had these voting stations, and so you could bring your ballot into any one of those. You didn't have to be in the correct precinct. I mean, why should somebody who's in precinct 170 and shows up in precinct 234 with a valid ballot, why should that ballot not count? Or if they have to do a provisional, why? I mean, if they're a registered voter, they ought to be able to vote. The Brennan Center for Voting Rights has suggested that people's registration should just remain constant, and that if you move across town, your registration is unaffected by that. Of course, you might have to vote for different offices if you move from one legislative district to another, but why should you be unable to vote just because you moved within a city, within a county, or maybe within a state?
What about an all vote by mail, Trent? What do you think?
Here's the thing: is that I take my children with me to the ballot, and I think it's important. I think that you lose something on election day. I think that that's a tradition for people, and I don't know if we should get rid of that.
Yeah. You like the total tradition, Sam?
Well, I've never signed up for the Pebble list. I love going to the polls on election day. I have a lot of fun with it. But to Jeff's point, I think it did run very smoothly for the city, and certainly it was beneficial to the Democratic Party because they have a voter registration advantage here, which means when you do an all-mail ballot and you send it to every registered voter, you're increasing your party line turnout, which was part of the objective in passing that. So I think there's some gamesmanship behind it as well. What concerns me, and I know I'm about to get hit for people saying I'm disenfranchising voters, what worries me is uninformed voters. If you're not willing to take 5 minutes to sign up for the Pebble list, if you're not willing to take 10 minutes to go down to the polls, are you going to take the time to educate yourself on the issues and candidates that you're voting on?
So it's not that hard, is it?
It's not that hard to vote now. You can sign up for the Pebble list, and you get that ballot like clockwork every single year at your home. That takes a couple of minutes to do. Anyone with a computer can do it online. You can stop in at the DMV or any number of other places and get those forms. So, yeah, I don't see this as a major obstacle to overcome, and I think we're better off sticking with a system where people have to opt in to participate.
What about a vote by mail, Steve? Your
thoughts? Well, I always vote by mail. My wife always goes to the voting booth. It would create a huge domestic issue in my home if we went all vote by mail. So I'm not going there.
Right,
I voted against it at the council level because I wanted to respect the opportunity for people to go to the polls if they wanted to. And it's something that's not only a tradition, but it gives people the opportunity to wait until the 11th hour and look at the propositions and look at the candidates and wait for all the debates to finish and do their due diligence. So I think there's some validity. And Jeff was right, though. We cut down the number of polling places. That was because we were running out of functional machinery. We were running out of ADA-compliant polling stations, and we were running out of poll workers. So to constrict the number but allow people to move across the city or wherever, and so make it just more user-friendly in terms of where you can vote. The other problem is we have a lot of split precincts right now. And so what we were seeing in this most recent election, principally in the Prop 409 election, is that we had county people voting in the city election and city people not getting the city ballot. And so now with the way the precincts are split up in some cases, it just magnifies the opportunity for error.
And this Prop 409, you mentioned the road bond issue actually is now ahead, I think, as of Friday afternoon, at least by about 250 votes or so.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by that, and do you think it's going to make it?
I'm surprised by it, but I thought the thing was going to go down in flames, quite frankly, and that's one of the reasons I said when we got to funding it, let's not spend the $350,000 to put it on the ballot. But I guess from a popularity standpoint, it puts us on the council somewhere between raising your taxes and potholes. But maybe it's got a chance of passing at this point because of the kinds of ballots that are left to be counted.
Yeah, and my only big prayer is that it passes by more than 150 or loses by more than 150, because by my calculation, that's roughly about where it needs to be to trigger a recount. So then we'll be counting ballots again.
But let me throw this in there also, and Jeff will know more about this than any of us because he's an attorney. It is rare for the court to invalidate an election. If there are several thousand ballots that are in question between the county people voting in the city election, the city people being disenfranchised, at what point, and somebody will have standing to file a charge over this thing, to contest the election, because there are 500,000 people's property taxes at stake. So at what point will the court say, gosh, that is a significant number, 2,000 or 3,000 voters who were disenfranchised or should have been voting or shouldn't have been voting, and if the difference is only 200 votes, maybe that's a sufficient number to throw this thing back out to the voters again. I know that's rare, it's difficult, but it's certainly something that may get challenged in court.
My understanding is that not that many ballots were affected. What the difference was the city voters, if you had a city precinct and a county precinct in the same voting area or voting location, the city voter was supposed to get a striped ballot, a ballot with a stripe on it, and the county voter was supposed to get one that did not have a stripe on it. And there weren't very many of those joined together precincts in a voting location, and we're not hearing that there were really that many of the people that could have gotten it erroneously. But it does make us back up and have to say, well, maybe we should have been more careful about that, knowing that this was on there. Maybe we should not have joined a city precinct with a county precinct. And had the foresight to see that this just shouldn't be done.
Are you surprised by the road thing actually?
I'm very surprised that it is as close as it is, and it shows the power of potholes on the electorate. There is no doubt about it. As everyone's teeth have been rattling around town, that obviously resonated at the ballot box. But one other thing that I was surprised with, frankly, was the amount of money that did end up getting spent pro 409 versus the amount that was spent against it, which is a good friend of mine, Sean McCluskey, who ran the entire anti-409 effort on $3,000. So I thought that was a really, really interesting battle, and for it to be this close now, I think is going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see this one end up in the courts one way or another because of some of those snafus. There are a handful of people on both sides behind this issue who are really passionate about it, and that's when you do get those lawsuits getting popped up.
And Trent, the Congressional District 1 race, Jonathan Payton looked very good on election night, but then Ann Kirkpatrick came back as these Indian counties started reporting their returns, and Payton conceded earlier this week. Are you surprised at how that one went?
Yeah, I thought the Indian turnout was a little bit more than I thought it was going to be. But however, it makes sense that you're going to get a lot on. They actually had the Indian elections on the same day this time. They don't always do that. They did it this time. The other thing, too, is that, you had the presidential election going. So it might be one of those things where Ann Kirkpatrick, every 2 years, every other election cycle has a much better chance of getting elected than the next one. Because I don't think that if it's just a congressional election or just a regular governor election, you're going to see that type of turnout again at the Indian reservation as you had this time. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of what she does, and if she is able to make more inroads than she did last time that she was elected to those same areas.
And Jeff, are you surprised at how this went?
Not really, because what happened here, and keep in mind that the Libertarian got 6 percentage points in that. That's a huge factor. I mean, that you had someone that a lot of disgruntled Republicans could vote for instead of the Republican nominee. I mean, studies have shown that Libertarians don't take anything away from Democrats. So, no, I'm surprised it got as close as it did. I think she had a healthy lead over him. But again, the money bombs that were dropped on her by outside groups and independent committees and the Republican National Committee were huge. I mean, they really, really went after her, and I think her momentum was stopped in its tracks, and he closed the gap to make it quite a bit closer. But the most fun for me on election night was hearing him declare victory and all the things he was going to do and not do when he got back to Congress. And then I would have liked to have seen the look on his face when the Coconino County votes and the reservation votes came in, and he suddenly had to go, oh my God, I guess that victory was a bit false there.
I mean, I think there was $9.5 million spent on that congressional race, which I think breaks a record in Arizona for congressional race spending, Sam. And I think $6 million of it, more than $6 million, came from the outside groups and only $3 million from the candidates themselves.
I saw something that suggested that might have been the most expensive in terms of independent expenditures, most expensive congressional race in U.S. history, which, it was shocking. But I think everyone knew that was the seat, that was going to swing Arizona. For our congressional district, it looked, as it played out, that Kristen Sinema would have the advantage over Vernon Parker in CD9, and I think most people gave Ron Barber a much bigger advantage than he ended up having in CD2. So this has been the target seat. We knew this one would swing the makeup of the congressional district, and you saw that. Now, as an aside, I think we're all about to get arrested by the PC police for calling all of our friends here in the state Indians over and over. But, I think you saw that vote turn out, which was what Jonathan did not expect. It was such a high turnout among the reservation, and it just totally swung that election when those votes came in.
Steve, your thoughts on that one?
Well, I think that it shows that the big money, Jonathan wasn't over to come. I mean, the voters are smarter than some of the really.
They spent more for Kirkpatrick than they did for Payton, so that's
the big money. The big money coming in from out of state that was running the gutter ads on her. He wasn't over to overcome the narcissism that people recognize. I mean, look at his career in the legislature and in the Rio Nuevo board. The guy made an absolute career out of trying to screw the city and the county, and people saw that. And if his sole focus is how do I advance my own political career first, people see through that. Now, I'll give you three quick examples. The legislation he tried to pass
over, Steve.
The legislation. Well, we're talking about it. Do you want some examples or not? I mean, he's a loser for three reasons. The guy tried to screw the city and the county from a home rule standpoint, changing the way we do our elections. He was on the Rio Nuevo board, $72 million of lawsuits.
Which I don't think has any impact on people in Saddlebrook
I absolutely
or
think that people look at the quality of the character and how you represent the constituents for which you're responsible at the time, and I think that matters to people.
Wow, I think it absolutely should.
Well,
and we're talking about Ann Kirkpatrick, who not one newspaper in the state could endorse because she totally decomposed on that campaign trail. And it was an absolute embarrassment.
Did, which was screw the county taxpayers when he gave our wastewater sewage plant to Moran.
We've got 4 minutes left, and I want to get to the John McCain.
Dominated Pima County.
Yeah, he did. He did actually win Pima County 2-1, I think, or 60% of the vote here. But let's talk about the John McCain and Benghazi, Sam. John McCain's really pushing for an investigation here and throwing himself in the spotlight and getting into a fight with President Obama.
I think it's absolutely, no question, the right thing to do. And the fact that the broader media has ignored this story for months. The best thing you can say about Benghazi was that from the very first decision through the final one, that not one good choice was made. That's the best thing you can say about it. The worst thing that you can say is that not only was the administration's response to everything that happened in Benghazi and the lead up to it totally incompetent, but that they distorted everything they could to keep this away from the public prior to the election. Now, I think Senator McCain is doing the exactly right thing. He waited until after the election. And now he wants an investigation, and I think the public deserves one. From the hiring of a firm that shouldn't be guarding a 7-Eleven to protect one of our consulates, all the way through all the misstatements that were put out by Susan Rice, our ambassador to the UN, and all the other people weeks after the attack when we knew it wasn't the fault of some silly internet video that no one had ever seen before. This deserves an investigation. It deserves to have the public know what happened. And so we understand what steps we can take to prevent this in the future. He's doing absolutely the right thing.
Jeff.
John McCain has become an embarrassment to himself in Arizona and the way he behaved recently. He's constantly doing things like this. I mean, he is just, a sore loser from losing in 2008, and he ought to try to go back to the kind of statesman he was before the 2008 election. Let's get to the bottom of this, but as Susan Collins, a Republican from Maine, said yesterday, what McCain said is absolutely inappropriate. They're investigating it with the existing committees we have right now. What Susan Rice said is what the CIA told her to say. Her remarks are almost verbatim from the unclassified account of it that was given to her. They do not match the classified version, which she was not told to say anything about. And you can read these. The remarks are on the internet, exactly what she said, and the handout she was given of what she could say. This is a woman who has nothing to do with the Benghazi.
Then why was she going out and talking about it on all the shows?
Because she was asked to be a spokesperson about what happened, and she used the talking points given to her by the CIA, which had been declassified. So that's all she said. Now, we may get to the bottom of it. No, that's not true. He was talking about the classified version of it.
They knew within 24 hours that was a terrorist attack.
The CIA knew that. The CIA knew it very soon. But
you're the one that's telling me that
John McCain castigating a public servant for doing what her duty was and for having been handed talking points that she was supposed to use. And none of this has anything to do with
what actually happened. Jeff won't talk about that.
Well,
because Jeff won't talk about that because he knows it was a disaster.
You have a joint committee of Congress and the Senate right now that is in the middle of an investigation. They will get to the bottom of it, and Petraeus' testimony today is going to be very helpful.
You've got about 30 seconds, Steve.
I can take 30 seconds. I'm not going to embrace what McCain said. I think it was over the top. And yet we investigated Watergate. We investigated Iran-Contra. Let's look into this. Let's make sure, as Sam said, that it doesn't happen again. Find out what mistakes were made, who made them, let the chips fall where they may, and just come out of this a better country, governing better, and protecting our ambassadors overseas more effectively.
10 seconds. Sam, do you think McCain actually has the votes to stop Rice from becoming Secretary of State?
No.
No. Okay. That is going to be all we have time for tonight. You can learn more about what's happening in politics by visiting azpm.org. And we'd love to know what you thought about tonight's program, so be sure to leave us a comment while you're on our website. And to find out the latest from AZPM, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Stay tuned next for the News Hour, and then at 8:30, tune into Arizona Week as host Michael Chihawk digs into the future of state education funding. Next week on the Roundtable, we'll look at how the election will affect next year's legislative session. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching, and on behalf of the entire Roundtable, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.